Hello everybody, it is Tito Capote and we're back with another deck profile. It has been a while, but that is because I have been for Pokemon stuff, I'm gonna start doing deck profiles and just openings and content and stuff for that because I'm really enjoying it. But for Yu-Gi-Oh, I didn't want to make a deck profile or a video with we knew the ban list was coming any second, and it did come any second, and it has been it was an interesting ban list. The ban list was kind of insane. It hit a lot of decks that had a lot of potential, and Kashtira didn't get hit nearly as much as it needed to. I still think that or Labyrinth will be the best deck. Labyrinth because it didn't get hit at all and it already had a good game against Kashtira and the rest of the meta. And with Purrely being so much weaker than it was before, I just think that those are going to be the best decks, but that's just me. I built my deck around that, and anyway, so I'm going to have sections in the video. I can't put them in the video like normal thing because I don't have enough subscribers, but I'm going to put the times in the comments so you guys can see and skip to the parts you want to see and skip the parts that you don't want to see. So this video is going to be how to play Purrely, and the way I think that is the best to play Purrely in the upcoming format before the Dune release in July. So for this next month and a half, I think this is the way I'm going to play the deck. I've tested quite a bit, but again, I'm not perfect. There could be another way. Something could come up that's like, oh, this way's better, and I'll let you guys know if that does happen, if I do find something that's better. But for now, I think that this is my favorite way to play the deck, and one that I've had a lot of success with against Kashtira, against Labyrinth, against all the decks that are going to be good, especially Sprite. I think it has a really good game against Sprite, which is important because that deck also barely got hit at all, and still up basically full power. So after so long, it's been almost a year of Sprite. But anyway, let's get into the first section, which is going to be the deck profile. Then I'm going to go into what happened with the ban list, how the deck got hit, and why it matters. Then I'm going to go into what you can do, different ways. This isn't the only way you can modify your deck to just play Purrely, right? But I think it's the best way. And then I'm going to explain after that why this is the best way, and then show you guys I think test hands don't really do the deck justice, because a lot of the strengths in the deck, especially this version of the deck, is being able to play through your opponent's interactions and being able to set up a board despite Imperm being in the format, despite Valor being in the format. Okay, let's do the deck profile. So first, we're going to play 3 copies of Purrely. Purrely is still, honestly, now the best way to get into Plump and into your different spells and traps, just like before. The advantage that this... why do I have something on my sleeve like that? Okay. The advantage that this card has over the normal Purrely is that it can use from the graveyard, right? So its effect is when it's summoned, you add 1 non-quick play spell Purrely card from your deck. It could be the normal Purrely, it could be the field spell, or it could be the continuous spell. Either way, that's just an added bonus. Well, it's not an added bonus, it's a really good effect, but the main reason why it's so good is because it fixes the problem of Purrely having to have cards in hand to be able to go into their Xyz. You can just go into Purrely and do 1 from the grave. The unfortunate part is that it is once per turn, unlike the rest of the deck, but honestly, that's pretty fair considering how strong it is. Then we have 3 of the regular Purrely. 3 of the regular Purrely is still really good. I know this deck is really expensive, but I think it's going to drop sometime soon. But anyway, I'm not sure. It might go up. If you guys want to buy your cards while you can, then while they're low, I recommend doing it, because after Dune, the deck is going to go up because it gets a lot better with that support. But anyway, what this does is when it's summoned, it excavates 3. Not excavates 3. You reveal 3 and add 1 Purrely quick play, or spell trap, sorry, from those 3 to your hand. And then while it's on the field, you can activate the effect to use a Purrely quick play from your hand as Xyz material. And yeah. Then we have the best way that I think the deck is going to be played now, which is Nutria Purrely. This is what I used to play before the new support, because it's a good supplementary engine for the deck, especially since a lot of the effects rely on the graveyard, so discarding the cards doesn't really hurt all that much, especially if you have another Naturia card in hand. You can always get more advantage, and you can get into things like Naturia Beast for the Sprite and for the Sword Soul for like basically every deck in the format, because Naturia Beast is great. It even like just kills Runic Sprite. And Purrely too. And then it also can go into Naturia Barkion, which is really, really good against Labyrinth. So yeah, anyway, what Mole Cricket does is on the field, you can, as a quick effect, send it to the graveyard as cost, which is important because it can get impermed, or you can chain it to an imperm to dodge the imperm, and it can summon up to 2 Naturia monsters from your deck, 2 if your opponent has a monster with the highest attack on the field, and 1 if they don't. So you're usually summoning Camilla and then going into a Camilla and a Sunflower, which is a negate. It's actually 2 negates if you have Camilla on the field, but we'll get to that soon. And when it's in the graveyard, if your opponent summons a monster or from the extra deck, or if you summon a Naturia monster, it can come back from the graveyard, which is really great because if you synchro summon for a Naturia Beast or Naturia Barkion, you can bring it back to then get the Camilla and Sunflower on your next turn, because most likely your opponent will have something over 2300 attack, or 2200. Then we have 3 Camilla. I think this is the better one because this is the good normal summon on the deck. Usually turn 1, you're not going to be able to get 2 cards off Mole Cricket, but off Camilla you can get a lot. You can either just send Mole Cricket and set up for next turn to just get the Sunflower play, or if you have a Mole Cricket in hand, you can discard the Mole Cricket off a Purrely spell and then send Tree and go for the Naturia, the one that summons from grave, right? And then just go into Naturia Beast and get like all the advantage you want. But also what it does is it can summon a Naturia monster from your graveyard when your opponent summons a monster, which is great because it lets you recycle your Naturia Beast and Barkion, which I think why this one is better at 3 than the Mole Cricket. And then while it's on the field and you activate another Naturia monster's effect, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard instead of tributing Naturia monsters, which is really great because it makes Naturia Sunflower not once per chain, not once per turn monster negate, which is really good. And then the card troopers here are Gen X Ally Birdman, because I don't have Gen X Ally Birdman. I'm still trying to get my hands on it, but no one in my locals has them, and I've ordered them online, but for now they're just card trooper, but they're just proxies. And either way, it's still at 1 until the new ban list comes out June 5th. I wanted to make this list prematurely because I think that it's going to really help sort of give you an idea what Purrely is going to play like, or what the advantages and disadvantages of Purrely in the coming format are going to be. And then, anyway, 2 Gen X Ally Birdman. With this, you can make, it's a tuner and level 3, I believe. Yeah, a level 3. So which is why I use Card Trooper, because it's also a level 3. But what it does is you can bounce a card on your field to summon it, and then yeah, that's it. It doesn't sound like a very powerful effect, but when you can just a Purrely, which is not once per turn, so you can proc the effect again if you're down bad for cards or it got impermed, or a Purrely that got impermed and you don't really have a way to get another Purrely, but you haven't normal summoned, because this deck doesn't normal summon too often unless you open the Naturia stuff. So with this card, you can go into a 7 with Camilla, you can go into a 4 with Purrely or Mole Cricket, or you can go into a 5 with the Sunflower, which usually I only did one of the options in my extra deck. I only did the 4 because I think it's the best one, and I wanted to put my extra deck space into the Naturia and the Purrely stuff, which I think is more important. But this is just an extra extender most of the time, but some of the time it can lead to an even more powerful end board, which I think is really great, and it gives the deck a sort of protection against evenly matched, which I'm going to explain later when I get to it. And then we have this card. This is supposed to be a Nutria Sunflower, which again I don't have because I lost mine. I think my cat like ate it or something, which it was fine. It's not an expensive card, but like it sucks because I don't have it. Nutria Sunflower, what it reads is you can tribute itself and another Nutria monster on the field to negate a monster effect when your opponent activates a monster effect. What you do is you summon Camilla, which has the replacement effect, and you summon Sunflower, which has the negate effect. So you mill cards, which helps you get cards into the graveyard for the Nutria stuff, but more importantly, the Purrely spells and traps, which you want any way to find Delicious you can, because even though it's not the most important card in the deck, it is what made the deck so powerful. It is what made the deck so accessible, and it is what made the deck like as consistent as it did. Because not only did we lose 2 quick play spells, we also lost our main way of getting to plump. We lost our way to most consistent way of making noir. So cards like these are just to supplement that weakness, right? Then we have our hand traps. I'm playing 3 Ash Blossom, which stops a search, a dump, or a summon from the deck. And we have 3 Imperm. This is like whatever, but 3 Imperm. I think that Imperm is going to be very strong next format. Again, I might be wrong, but from what I've seen, it's going to be a lot stronger because one, Purrely is a lot weaker, and I don't think, especially now, like right after the ban list, I don't think many people are going to play it. Maybe there's going to be a list in one of the YCSs or one of the regionals that does really well, and people are like, oh hey, we can still play Purrely, and it's going to stop being as good. But I think Imperm is just really good, especially against Purrely. Against Vanquish Soul, it's also good. Against Kashtira, if you just Imperm the Arise Heart, that the 1 copy of Arise Heart, or Imperm one of their thing, I think it's going to be it makes the game a lot easier, and it's an interaction that you can do during your turn and your opponent's turn, which I think is really good. And then Ash is just all around good, and I think is important because it can stop Welcome Labyrinth, which it's the only card really that stops Welcome Labyrinth post and like you want to stop Welcome Round because that's what gets the state going, right? They can reset it during your turn and do it during their next turn, but by then you already have your setup. You can set up Barkion, and then what do, right? Then we have 3 My Friend Purrely. This is your main way of getting to your cards. Unfortunately, it's a lot less consistent way to get into Delicious Memory because it's at 1, and I'm going to explain why. So what this card does is you pay 500 life points, activate it on the field. So first you activate it, and then you activate its effect. It's not all this at the same time. So it can be Ghost Ogre, but I don't think Ghost Ogre is going to be as prevalent in this format unless people are really scared of Sprite. But I think Kashtira and Labyrinth are going to be more feared than Sprite, although it is a really powerful deck, but I think people are going to be doing other things to stop Sprite, not Ghost Ogre. Then you can activate the card and pay 500 life points, reveal 3 Purrely cards from your deck except this card. Well, My Friend Purrely, it says My Friend Purrely. And then your opponent randomly chooses one and you add it to your hand. You don't have to reveal it to your opponent, but you can't choose unless you reveal all 3, then it really doesn't matter. But you can't do that with Delicious Memory anymore. So it's that's why it's less consistent to get into Delicious Memory. And when your Purrely Xyz monster leaves the field because of your opponent's card, you can take 3 or target 3. Does it target? I don't know. You can add up to 3 Purrely quick play spells, so it doesn't target. You just add 3 quick play spells from your graveyard to your hand, Purrely quick play spells, and they have to be with different names, but it's still really good. Then we have our quick plays. We have 3 Happy Memory, 3 Sleepy Memory, 3 Pretty Memory, and 1 Delicious Memory. So I'm going to explain what all of these do. All of them have the effect where at resolution you can send a card, discard a card from your hand to summon a Purrely monster from your deck. But they can Ash every single one of these, even if you're not doing the search effect. because it has the search summon thing. Anyway, happy memory, what it does is non-targeting. You can choose one card on your field, and the next time it's destroyed, it's not destroyed. It helps you protect your my friend and your field spell, which I'm going to get into field spell in a bit. But it's really good. And then when it's attached to your Xyz material, when it's attached to your Xyz monster, sorry, it makes it so you can attack one more monster per turn for each happy memory you have attached. So now we're going to do Purrely Sleepy Memory. So what this card does is it doesn't have a monster that you can go into with Purrely, but it does have an effect when attached to a monster, which honestly, I think this card's good because it lets you draw, which is the effect during your opponent's standby phase. You can draw one card for each copy of Sleepy Memory. But I think it's kind of rough that you can't go into a Purrely monster, because if it's in your hand, it's like you can't use Purrely to go into something, which is kind of just rough. So I recommend getting this out of your hand before anything. Unless you're trying to go for like Delicious Memory and you don't have the way to access it, right? Because I'll explain more in like how to play the deck and whatever, but for now, just get this out of your hand first. And then Pretty Memory, you both gain 1,000 life points, and when it's attached to your monster, you can tribute one card, send one card you control to the graveyard to attach one of your opponent's cards as material. Which is great. It does target, which is unfortunate, but then we have the most important, well, not most important, but the best one of the bunch, because when attached to your opponent, when you're attached to your monster, it gains 300 attack for each material attached to it. This used to be insane when you had 3 copies, because 900 for each material is kind of really good, especially when you get up to like 10 materials. And this one protects things from battle, but this one goes into Plump, which is the best Xyz monster, which is why it was limited, as well as the attack gain. But anyway, let's go on to the rest of the deck. We have the field spell. We're only playing 2 of the field spell, because I found that opening 2 of this in your hand is really just like ugh, and it's searchable, and it's just it's good to open, but you don't want to open 2, and it's searchable, so you don't really need 3. What this does is it protects your special summon Purrelys from targeting the turn they're summoned, and during the end phase, you can attach a quick play spell from your deck or graveyard as material to one of your Purrely Xyz monsters. Then we have the Naturia spells and traps, and more spells and traps. We have Naturia Blessing. We're only playing 1 of this because we only have one Naturia Sacred Tree. The deck did get weak. The deck didn't get weaker because the Purrelys got stronger, but we're missing Plump. But then Naturia Sacred Tree also got weaker, and yeah, it's like the deck is in a weird space, but I've tested it and it works out really well. I think this is the best way to play it, but that's just me. Anyway, what Naturia Blessing does is basically just a monster reborn from one of your Naturia monsters, whether it be the Synchros or the normal monsters. You only play 1 because you always want to search this off Naturia Sacred Tree when you already have a way to get to your things or open it maybe. But Naturia Sacred Tree, basically you never want to set it. You always want to keep it in your hand because you want to send it to the grave to get a search. It is mandatory, so it'll always be chain link 1, which is something that you need to know because you can't chain block with it. So if you play like that, you're kind of cheating. Then we're playing 2 per leap. This is a way to recycle your Purrely monsters, which is really important, but it's also a way to go into your bigger Xyz when you're lacking that material, right? So what it does is you can target one of your Purrely Xyz monsters, summon a monster from your X deck with a different rank, and destroy it during using all the materials as materials, and then during the end phase of the next turn you destroy it. Then we have, I know a lot of people are mad, they're like, oh, why are you playing Foolish Burial Goods? But I do think this is really good, especially in this version of the deck, because not only does it represent any of the quick play spells that you need off of Purrely, but it also represents the Naturia Sacred Tree, which is just a really good extra thing. Say you open just like you don't open a normal summon, right? And you're at the end of your turn and you're like, you have a Foolish Burial Goods. You didn't need it because you got the Plump. Anyway, so Foolish Burial Goods is good because it represents Delicious Memory as well as Sacred Tree in this deck, which is great because if you're at the end of your turn and you got to plump because you just got to plump, you have an extra way to get a normal summon or something that you like, a way to summon back a card from the grave, get extra advantage. It's just really good. I think it makes the deck a lot more consistent. It makes it so you can get into plump consistently, which is really important because I know a lot of people say that like the loss of plump wasn't a big deal, but like it was. It makes the deck a lot weaker. It's still a decent deck, but to be able to compete with the metagame, with Kashtira, with Labyrinth, with Vanquish Soul that's coming out, I think that deck got a lot stronger now that everything's weaker, and even Sprite. I think this is going to be important, especially since because of Sky Striker, I think people are going to be scared and start siding anti-spell. So being able to get two things first turn is going to be really important because you won't be able to activate cards on your second turn, if that makes sense. But if they open anti-spell, then that's kind of rough if you're going second. And now let's get into the extra deck. So we have one Relinquished Anima. I thought of taking this out of the deck, but it's just a really good card, and people don't pay attention to their zones as much as they should. I've won a lot of games because of this card, or even gotten into really good positions because of this card. Then we have 1 Purrely Happiness, 2 Purrely Noir. These are your big boss monsters of the deck. Noir is basically he's unaffected by activated effects when he has 5 more materials, and for each of the material, if you discard two materials from this card, you can target a card and shuffle it back to the deck, or put it on the bottom of the deck from the field or graveyard. And Purrely Happiness is your way to OTK. So every time these can both be ranked up onto a rank 2 monster with 5 or more materials, and this one every time it attacks, it deals 1500 damage to your opponent, and when it's summoned, you can negate all your opponent's monster effects. Then we have 2 copies of Purrely Plump. I still play 2 copies because you can get into 2 copies after the only problem is getting to Delicious Memory. After you have Delicious Memory rotation, it's pretty easy to get to go into Plump, just because you can do it off your graveyard, off Purrely, which is really good. What this card does is it targets 2 spells and trap in either graveyard and attach it to a material. That's a quick effect if you have a Purrely Delicious Memory as a material, which is important because every one of the Purrely monsters, so Purrely Beauty, Happiness, and Plump, all need quick play spells, certain quick play spells as material to go into, which is why the hit to Delicious Memory was such a big deal. Plump needs Delicious Memory to go into it, Purrely Beauty needs Pretty Memory to go into it, and Happiness needs Happy Memory to go into it. Now, Plump is the strongest because it helps you get into your big boss monsters easiest because it just gets materials, but Beauty and Happiness are also strong. Beauty is an imperm, so a targeted monster negate when during your opponent's turn and during your turn, and it has the Pretty Memory effect attached to it, and all of these monsters have effects when you activate a quick play spell and they're on the field. Up to thrice per turn. For each of them, they get an effect. So this one, it bounces a spell trap. This one, it changes the monster from monster's attack position, and Plump banishes a monster till the end phase. And then Happiness, its normal effect is when it attacks, it can once per turn half the attack of one of your opponent's monsters, and when it attacks, after damage calculation, you can add a Purrely card from your deck to your hand. So it's a way of getting into Delicious Memory if it's the last resort to get into Delicious Memory. Then we have our tech cards per se. We have Zeus and Downward because the whole deck is Xyz, so it's just really easy to go into, especially if you have something off a a Purrely that's going to be destroyed during the end phase. You just go to Zeus to save it, and Zeus is still a really good card. Then we have a Symbol Nightingale to help go into Zeus, and we have Sylvan Princess Sprite. This card reveals the top card of your deck, and if it's a spell card or a trap card, add it to hand. If it's not, you send it to the graveyard. So this is good for getting the Naturia monsters into the graveyard, but also getting more quick play spells and digging deeper into your deck, which is really good. Then we have the Synchro monsters. So this is the main thing you're going into off of Birdman, bouncing the field spell or even bouncing the... I think Birdman is only monsters, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've read it, but I know it. The main reason I want to use it is to reuse Purrely's, right? To dig deeper into the deck, try to get that delicious memory. So and if you just don't end on anything, you can end on Naturia Beast, Herald of Arclight, which is an Omni negates, and Spell Trap negates to the infinity, or Spell negates to the infinity. And it's also a Macrocosmos. Hand or main deck, so not even hand. So field or main deck. And then a Naturia Beast is spell trap cards negate by sending 2 cards from your deck to your graveyard, not once per turn. And Barkion is the trap counterpart of that with 2500 defense, so it's pretty good. And it's just, that's it. Anyway, now let's go into how the ban list affected the deck. Now let's go into how the ban list affected the deck. So let's talk about the ban list and the deck. So the only real hit to Purrely was Delicious Memory. Now I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, Delicious Memory it's a 1. That's not even a problem. The deck didn't need Delicious Memory. It can still win, and although that's true, it makes it a lot harder to win because you have less consistent access to Noir, you have a lot less consistent access to the OTK, because to do the OTK and to get to Noir, you have to open a lot of spells and a lot of ways to replenish your hand, which is not always going to be the case, because even before the ban list, this deck did have some consistency issues. Now you can do stuff like run half of your deck as draw cards and half of your deck as the Purrely stuff, but like, I don't think that's as viable. I think the deck needs some extra support to get it there now, because Delicious Memory at 1, there are several things that people, or at least some people, I don't think are thinking about when they're saying that the deck didn't really get hurt by it. So first off, is the consistency hit to the deck. Not only is it 3 less quick play spells to in the deck, so that means 3 less cards that you can open to get into a Purrely, or get into like things, and so, like, again, you're not always going to hope it. Sometimes you just opened hand traps, which is what happens, but it also means that you can't go into multiple copies of Plump. And that's important because that means you can't make a Noir and a Plump. A Plump is a really good point of interaction, because even if you have an extra, because if you don't want to summon a bunch of Purrelys, or you don't think that going into a rank 1 is as viable, you can just summon a Plump, and then during your turn set the spell cards to protect your cards and protect your monsters, and then also get a non-targeting banish for a monster during your opponent's turn, which was great. It was insane. It was huge. But now you can't do that because you're only locked into 1 Plump. So most of the time you're going to use that Plump to go into Noir because of how powerful that is. So that makes your end board a lot less like oomphy, you know? It makes it a lot less good. But also the hit to my friend Purrely, by extension of the having less copies of Delicious Memory in your deck, they also hit the consistency of my friend Purrely, because my friend Purrely needs 3 copies of your of the card in your deck to guarantee its search. So most of the time you would either have it in your hand or search it off my friend Purrely, which is great because then you have your basically guaranteed access to Delicious Memory and Plump and basically Noir. But now there's only 1 copy, so off the 3 you reveal, you only have a 33% chance, which again, not very high, to get that Delicious Memory. And like, it's a consistency hit, it's a power hit, and it's just a good hit. So a hit to every single Purrely Xyz monster in the deck. Now, why is it a hit to every Purrely Xyz monster in the deck? Because Purrely Delicious Memory wasn't only a card to get into Plump. It was also a way to protect your monsters from battle. Because let's say you couldn't go into Plump because you got interrupted, but you still have a beauty, a pretty memory in hand, and you don't want to use it because you don't want your opponent to gain life points. You just go into a Purrely, go into a beauty, and activate and just equip Delicious Memory from with the field spell to your beauty, right? And that way it gains 300 attack for every material it has. It's going to have at least 2 materials, now 3 with the Delicious Memory at the bare minimum. That's a 900 attack gain, makes it 2,500, which is a lot more intimidating than a gate with 2600 than with 1,600, right? Not only that, but that also means happiness can beat over less things if it gets negated, or if it gets or for whatever reason. It also means expertly happiness is no longer an OTK unless you have like 3 happy memory and they have really low attack monsters, because it can't get into ridiculous amounts of attack. It also means Noir isn't as powerful because it's no longer like a 6,500 defense monster. It's only ever 49. But again, that's very rare now because of the consistency hit to Plump. And it also means that you can't just sit on one of the little ones and wait to go into the Purrely, because the Purrely needs to be viable. It leads, you can either use it as a Dark Ruler no more to go with happiness, or you can use it as the main way people were using it to go into Noir, and be able to go into Noir when you didn't have enough materials. But now you can't do that because Plump isn't there, right? You won't have 5 materials most of the time, which is why you have to switch the way you play the deck up a little bit. A lot of the people who say you don't need to switch up are, I think, missing the point of why the ban list works and what Purrely is. I think it's not just use kitties to do stuff. It's a very flexible deck that can work in a lot of things. People are playing in Sprite. I just don't think that's I don't want to play Sprite. Sprite's old, and it'll be okay because you can go into Plump, but at the same time it's okay, but you're just playing Sprite with Plump in it. That's lame. And again, that's me saying I just think it's boring just playing the same deck over and it's splashing little engines. I don't want Purrely to be a little engine. I want it to be the focus of the deck. And yeah, but that comes to how to play the deck in the new format and why I think this version of the deck is the... Okay, now that we've talked about how the ban list really hit Purrely and why it's such a big issue, let's talk about why this deck is, I think, the best way to play Purrely going on until the new support comes out. Because the new support makes the deck just playable as pure again, which is great, but for now, I think it needs a little bit of a supplement. We already talked about how the hit to Delicious Memory hit basically all the cards in the deck. But now let's talk about different ways to play different changes to the way that you can play the deck to be able to supplement that change, right? First of all, I think Pretty Memory now is a lot less powerful because you can't equip 2 of them from the grave to be able to get 3 draws, and even then you're playing less hand traps, which you can play more hand traps. You can play a hand trap build of the deck, but I think the Interior stuff is more powerful because it helps play through things instead of stopping your opponent, which is, I think, better, especially because a lot of people are going to be playing a lot of hand traps, especially targeted hand traps to the best cards, to the best decks in the game, which are going to be Kashtira and I think Sprite and Labyrinth. But which also hit your deck, which is sucky, but it is what it is. But Purrely Happy Sleeping Memory is going to be a lot worse, specifically because you can't go into a Nexus monster with it in your hand off of Purrely. Because the one it's going to come out in June, and again, it's going to be really good, but it's not there yet, I think this card becomes a lot weaker. It's just going to be a way to get into Purrely, I think, and maybe get an extra draw off of, or again, if you open the nuts and can go into Plump, maybe it is a draw 2 or 3. But for now, it's not going to be as powerful. It's just going to be a way to get into Plump. Then my friend Purrely, instead of searching for 3 of the same card, whether it be Pretty Memory or anything, you could just search 1 Delicious Memory and maybe have a chance to get it, or just it's going to be the same mainly. Just I think that's going to be the only change. But I think that's the change to this. And anyway, let's get into the more important stuff, which is the supplements. So first of all, the Naturia stuff is going to be a way to get into Naturia Beast and Naturia Barkion. So, Camilla and Mole Cricket form not only a way to get into Naturia Beast, but also a really good advantage loop. Naturia Mole Cricket summons itself back when your opponent summons from the extra deck, which means at the beginning of the combo, when they go into an extra deck extender, you can either summon back, you can summon this back and get Naturia Camilla and a Sunflower from the deck. But also Camilla special summons a Naturia monster from graveyard when your opponent just normal or special summons. This means that if, for example, they Kaiju, or I don't think Kaijus are going to be really prevalent in this format, but again, I might be wrong. I'm not an expert. Like, if they have a way to get rid of your Naturia Beast or your Barkion, you can just have the Camilla on field off of Mole Cricket and bring it back with, and bring the Naturia Beast or Barkion back with Camilla. Or even just turn one, going into Naturia Beast by if your opponent gammas you or something, which again, it's not going to be very popular, but there are other cards that special summon themselves during your opponent's turn, right? Anyway, this is going to be, this engine, I think, is really good because it helps you keep monsters on the field to be able to go into, to just wait out the game, and also and wait to get the cards that you need. But also because Naturia Barkion and Naturia Beast are very good. Again, it's always very good. Naturia Beast is insane just because it stops your opponent from playing spell cards, and it's Naturia Barkion is also insane because it really kills Labyrinth. It's Royal Decree on legs, which when you're playing a trap deck is kind of rough. So another thing that you have to think about is decks like Rescue Ace and other decks, like decks that want to play like Labyrinth. Again, Trap Tricks is still a thing because it's still a really cheap deck, and it's like it does okay. Like, it's not the worst deck. Like, these decks are still going to be popular, and against trap heavy deck, instead of going into Naturia Beast, you just go into Barkion, and you don't need as many spell and trap card removal cards as you would otherwise, right? But anyway, let's go on to the next thing. The next thing is the Herald of Arclight and the Gen Alex Birdman. Now, the main reason why I like Gen Alex Birdman is I'm pretty sure it does need to bounce back a monster, but if it doesn't, you can correct me in the comments. I should probably looked it up, but I'm doing this pretty time constrainty because I want to do a Pokemon deck profile as well, which is going to be in the channel, so if you want to see that, feel free. But anyway, what this mainly going to do is in bad hands where you happen to open this, or you have a way, like if you just open a Purrely and nothing else, or if you haven't normal summoned and haven't seen any of your Naturia cards but have a bunch of Purrely cards in your hand, you can summon the Purrely off the special summon and then bounce it back with Birdman to go into another Purrely, normal summon the Purrely again, and get another Excavate. So it just helps you dig deeper in your deck, but also with these two on the field, or with even Mole Cricket on the field if you've already used it and don't want to go into Sunflower because you milled it off something, or milled it off Camilla, or something, or you opened it, for example. Then you can go into a Herald of Arclight. Now, Herald of Arclight is really good because I think cards like Evenly Matched and cards like those type board breaky type cards, as well as cards like Nibiru and other problem cards, are going to be in the format. And Herald of Arclight is a Omni Negate, which is something the deck really missed before, but it's really easy to access with just opening a copy of Birdman, because everything in your deck is level 1 and Birdman is level 3. And it just gives, again, an extra power to the end board where it doesn't just lose to one thing, right? But anyway, that's the Naturia and the Birdman part of the deck. Now let's go into the different ways that you can play Purrely, because I think the deck needs to change a little. At least the way you play the deck, at least the way most people played the deck. The deck was mainly just put up Noir and sit on it, have extra shuffles, and keep it invulnerable to everything, right? But now with Plump Hit, you won't always get to that, to those 7 materials that was normal for Purrely decks beforehand. You're only going to have, or ever have, minimum, probably 5 maximum, but most likely you're going to have like 4 materials. It's going to be the one you attach on end phase. With all the interruptions in the format, you're going to have maybe 2 materials on the beauty or a plump that's been negated or something. Again, you can add more materials with plump, but it's like not the best, right? But because of this, Foolish Burial Goods is very good because you can dump the delicious memory to sort of keep that power alive, because a lot of the time, you, instead of dumping delicious memory, you would use it and then equip it off of the graveyard with Purrely, right? But this is basically just doing that without summoning a Purrely monster, which isn't the best, but it's the best we can do right now. But also, I think there should be you should think of Noir as not really a towers, just as a card with a really good effect. So most of the time, you're only going to have 5 materials. You're not going to have 7. You're going to have an extra shuffle. It's not going to be invulnerable to everything. But you can still think of it as an extra, like 2 extra interruptions, either a DD Crow or a quick effect Unicorn, which is great. It's a shuffle to your opponent's deck, basically, and it's basically a shuffle from your opponent's graveyard, which is just a better form of removal. Now, what I recommend doing is when when you open Purrleap, instead of discarding it to get the Purrleys in the graveyard, set it on the field. And even if you only have 2 materials on Beauty, or Beauty is the one that I think is the most smart option to make during your end board if you can't get into Noir turn 1. If you think that you can't get into it, or your opponent has an interruption, you think, damn, I'm probably not going to be able to get a 5 material Noir on field, then you can just search for Purrleap, maybe make it so that you don't have My Friend, or don't have, like, if you have an extra search, or if you're just down bad, you search Purrleap, sit on the field, have a Beauty with maybe 2, maybe 3 materials on it, and use the Purrely negates, but then afterwards, use Purrleap to go into Noir, not as a Towers monster, but as 2 extra interruptions that aren't once per turn or once per chain, right? A way to get into rid of your boss monster, your opponent's boss monster that doesn't really have a way to get rid of it. Noir gets rid of a lot of things that are difficult to get rid of, and it's just really good interruptions. So I think that is really good, and it's just a suggestion as to how to play the deck. And now for the last part of this video, we're going to go over different ways to play the deck. Now, I think there are a few things you can do to play the deck. First, there's an Naturia Purrely option, which is great. Then there are also, like, the discard engines, I guess you could call them, like Dark World, like Dangers. A lot of people used to use those to supplement Purrely back before the new support came out, which you can go back to those, but Dark World, I think, isn't as good because people are still playing Branded. Branded didn't really get a lot weaker. It just lost its gimmick puppet stuff. So I think it's still going to be a really good deck. It didn't really get hit that hard on the ban list. So I think it's still really going to be good. And that deck plays Bystials and gets advantage off getting Darks and Lights, which the Dark Worlds are. But also, like, the Dark World engine it makes the deck even more bricky because the cards don't really do anything in your hand, as opposed to Naturia, which are actual, like, good cards that get you into monsters like Naturia Beast or Barkion. Then we have the hand trap heavy version of the deck, which is basically pure Purrely. It's just with a bunch of hand traps instead of kaijus, instead of stuff. Now, the deck is still decent. It's not unplayable because of the lack of plump. It's just with a lot of people playing more cards like Imperm, Ash, Veiler, and it's going to be a hand trap heavy format. I think it's not going to be Kaijus and going second cards like it was before. I think people are going to like actually play hand traps, which Imperm in particular, like it hurts the deck a lot more because of, again, less cards, less consistency. It's harder to play through, I think, especially when your opponent probably has like another Ash and another Veiler in hand and then full combo, right? So I think something that is more resilient and something that plays through more things is better than something that stops your opponent from playing right now. And main Purrely is still usually going to stop your opponent from playing, or or the other ways that you can play pure Purrely, which are the following. You can play an OTK build of Purrely. So X Purrely Happiness is still a really good OTK card. You can negate all your opponent's monster effects, and it can't be responded to. And you can just attack for 1 billion because you can attach 3 happy memories, and that's great. But again, there's the consistency issue. You can no longer go into Plump to equip 2 happy memories from your grave and just go into this thing. You can't gain as much attack from the delicious memories because you're only gaining 300 for each material. So even if you have 10 materials, this card is only going to beat 5,500, which is barely enough to beat over access code. And that's like that's like multiple turns of setup because you don't have Plump anymore. So I think that the other versions of Purrely are just a lot less consistent, a lot weaker. They're going to play into the format a lot worse because, again, you're going to have other decks that like are very hard to interrupt, like Sprite, like Kashtira, like Labyrinth, which is another thing. You have to deal with traps, which the other versions of the deck have a lot of trouble doing, especially because Labyrinth can main Gozen match because they're all, I think, dark. And which hurts this deck a lot because you can't go in. You can basically only go into Happiness, or if they Gozen match your Lily, you can't go into anything. You just lose. So having that resilience to spells and traps is going to be a lot stronger, I think. But these are the different ways that you can play the decks. And if you want to try the other ones, or if you want to see another build of Purrely, I can try my best to do it another way and show you guys if you don't want to do it yourselves. But yeah, sorry this video was so long. I just really wanted to go into detail to try to help people in this new format. I stutter a lot because I'm sorry, I stutter and I stop talking. It's just because my brain works weird. So, but I really hope you enjoyed. I know this deck is so loved by so many people because it just, like, I got it because it reminds me of my kitty Ava and like all the foster kitties that I have, that I take care of. And I love it because it's my little baby in my favorite card game, right? It's just, I don't want to see a deck like this die, and I feel like a lot of people are very disillusioned with it, but there is still a way to play it. It might not be as good as before. It might even, I don't know if it's going to be better, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be either just as good or worse, but there is still a way to play it. You can still win. I tested it out a lot. It works. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys keep playing the deck. If you liked the video, please leave a like and even subscribe, and if you want, ring the notification bell for more videos. I'll see you guys later. I hope you have a great day. Kitties, they're insane. There's big sister Ava. Oh no, she doesn't want to be with Ash anymore. And then there's Ashy. And then it's insane. Look at, oh, there's a noise.